Jimmy Kimmel didn't just crack a joke this time, he absolutely lost it. What was supposed to be a lighthearted monologue turned into a fiery outburst the moment Donald Trump announced that Sylvester Stallone would be one of the 2025 honorees. Kimmel's voice shook with disbelief as he tore into the announcement, slamming Trump for turning a prestigious award into what he called a bad sequel to Rocky that nobody asked for. The studio audience went silent, unsure if they were watching comedy or a full-blown meltdown. And within minutes, clips of Kimmel's breakdown spread across the internet like wildfire, sparking one of the most chaotic nights in late-night TV history. Donald Trump loves a show, and this time he put himself at the center of it. Standing before cameras with a grin that could split the room, he proudly announced the 2025 honorees.
Movie icon and a friend of mine. He's a very unique man. He's somebody that doesn't do these things. I said, I wonder if he'll accept, because some people don't really want to be honored. They don't care. Very honored to be honored, I will tell you. He's a very special guy. A real talent, never been given the credit for the talent. There was nobody else could have done the roles that he did like he did. I'm not even close, and they've tried, and they didn't work out too well. His name is Sylvester Stallone.
A list he claimed he was 98% responsible for choosing, and leading that list was none other than Sylvester Stallone. Trump described Stallone not just as an actor, but as a symbol of American grit, a fighter who embodied what he called real culture, not the woke nonsense. The announcement wasn't subtle. Trump lingered on Stallone's name, pointing to Rocky's underdog story as a mirror of his own political journey. He even joked that if the Kennedy Center didn't want him to pick the honorees, maybe next year I'll just give the medal to myself. The crowd chuckled nervously, unsure if he was joking or testing the waters. But while Trump framed Stallone's selection as a patriotic choice, the reaction outside the room was anything but calm. The shockwaves hit late-night television almost instantly, and by the time Jimmy Kimmel took the stage that evening, the news had already been spinning across social media. Viewers tuned in expecting jokes, but what they got was something closer to a live explosion. The announcement didn't just spark chatter online, it detonated inside Jimmy Kimmel's studio. When his show began that night, it was clear he wasn't in the mood for playful jabs. From the very first moments, his body language told the story. Pacing the stage, gripping his cards too tightly, his smile gone. Instead of easing into his monologue, Kimmel erupted into a rant so raw and chaotic that the audience didn't know whether to laugh or sit in stunned silence. What followed was less a comedy routine and more an unfiltered breakdown. His voice rose higher and higher as he tried to process the idea of Stallone being handpicked by Trump for one of America's most prestigious cultural awards.
When I did Rocky, if you remember, the first image was a picture of Jesus, and it says Resurrection AC Club. I found a church that had been converted to a boxing ring. So the image pans down from Jesus onto Rocky being hit. And at that moment, he was a chosen person, and that's how I began the journey. Something was gonna happen. This man was gonna go through a metamorphosis and change lives, just like President Trump. And I'll just say this, and I mean it. When George Washington defended his country, he had no idea that he was going to change the world. Because without him, you can imagine what the world would look like. Guess what? We got the second George Washington. Congratulations!
The lines between humor and outrage blurred as Kimmel tore into the announcement with a mixture of sarcasm, disbelief, and genuine anger. The usual rhythm of his show broke down completely, replaced with a fiery stream of frustration that felt almost uncomfortable to watch. The studio atmosphere shifted fast. Some audience members laughed nervously, unsure if this was part of the act, while others simply stared, wide-eyed, at the host unraveling before them. Kimmel slammed his desk, paced in circles, and raised his voice louder than ever, pouring weeks of pent-up criticism into one explosive outburst. Cameras caught every second of it, and by the time the segment was over, the clip had already begun circulating online. Within minutes, Twitter and TikTok were flooded with snippets of his breakdown. The words, "Jimmy Kimmel loses it," became a headline in themselves, trending worldwide before the show even wrapped. Critics alike debated whether they had just witnessed comedy at its most daring, or a late-night host completely unraveling on live television. Either way, it was unforgettable. If Jimmy Kimmel's outburst was the spark, the internet was the gasoline. Within minutes, social media turned his meltdown into a global event.
And I'll tell you, every once in a while, someone comes up with an insult I've never seen before. Like this one, Jimmy, you're a effing egg. I like eggs, I'm all right with that. A lot of people wish death on me over this. This one, go hang yourself with that fat string of bacon in the kitchen, you effing degen. I think it's short for degenerate. But then on the other hand, a lot of people opt not to wish death on me. They just wanted me to catch a disease. This guy said, get cancer. Get brain cancer. That Jimmy Kimmel video is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. Get AIDS, Jimmy Kimmel. Well, thank you. Some people attacked my wife, my daughter.
Clips of him pacing across the stage and slamming his desk were everywhere, each one captioned with increasingly ridiculous memes. One viral tweet joked that Kimmel had gone from late-night host to angry substitute teacher in under 5 minutes. Hashtags like Rocky Gate, Kimmel Meltdown, and even Adrian Award shot to the top of trending lists. TikTok edits spliced together Stallone's slow-motion training montages from Rocky with footage of Kimmel waving his arms around, creating the illusion that the two were locked in some bizarre cultural boxing match. Even Kimmel's critics couldn't help but laugh at the absurdity of it all. But not everyone was laughing. Some viewers argued that Kimmel had crossed the line, turning what should have been comedy into a full-blown tantrum. Others defended him, saying he was the only one willing to call out what they saw as Trump hijacking an American tradition. Either way, the meltdown had already taken on a life of its own, spiraling far beyond Kimmel's studio and into the broader cultural conversation. By the next morning, the story wasn't just about Trump's announcement anymore. It was about Kimmel himself, and whether his breakdown was the funniest late-night moment of the year or the most unhinged. By the next morning, Kimmel's meltdown wasn't just a late-night segment, it was headline news. But the real kicker was that Kimmel's reaction had actually overshadowed the original announcement. What should have been Trump's victory lap and Stallone's moment in the spotlight had instead become the Jimmy Kimmel Show, a cultural moment where one man's rage stole the stage from everyone else. And whether people were cheering him or mocking him, they were all still watching. What became clear in the aftermath was that this wasn't just about an award. It was about power, image, and who gets to control the narrative of American culture. The Kennedy Center Honors, once seen as a safe, apolitical celebration of art, had suddenly been transformed into a stage for political theater. Trump had turned a tradition into a spectacle, handpicking honorees who reflected his own brand and daring critics to call him out. Stallone, whether he intended it or not, became the symbol of that shift. His selection wasn't only about his legacy as Rocky or Rambo, it was about aligning a larger-than-life Hollywood figure with Trump's vision of real America. To some, it felt patriotic. To others, it felt like the arts had been hijacked. And then, there was Kimmel, whose meltdown became the perfect mirror to the larger debate. He represented the outrage, the disbelief, and the sense that something sacred had been turned into a circus.
Yeah, no, I don't feel under attack, really. I mean, I think there's a response to every attack, and people love to laugh, and that's never going to change, and there's nothing anybody is ever going to be able to do about that.
But it takes more courage now more than ever.
I don't know if it's courage. I think courage is when a building is on fire and you go into it, but it's a little more complicated than it used to be.
His outburst captured exactly what critics were feeling. That this wasn't an honor for art, but a performance for politics. The collision of these forces, Trump's showmanship, Stallone's star power, and Kimmel's fury, turned what should have been a straightforward announcement into a cultural battle. It was no longer about who got a medal, it was about what the medal even meant anymore. In the days that followed, the fallout only grew stranger. Rumors swirled about whether Stallone would even attend the ceremony, with some insiders claiming he was privately nervous about being caught in the middle of a political storm. Others insisted he was thrilled by the spotlight, ready to stride onto the Kennedy Center stage like it was his own personal boxing ring. Trump, on the other hand, basked in the chaos. Every headline about Kimmel's breakdown was, in his mind, proof that he had chosen correctly. Supporters praised him for honoring a real American icon, while critics accused him of reducing a national tradition to a reality show stunt. Either way, Trump had seized the narrative, and he knew it. As for Jimmy Kimmel, the meltdown became impossible to escape. Every interview request circled back to that one night. Every news article plastered his red-faced outburst alongside Trump's grinning announcement. Instead of backing down, Kimmel doubled down, turning his next show into a tongue-in-cheek recap of the chaos. half mocking himself, half mocking the idea that Stallone had become the centerpiece of American culture. Tension built into a spectacle of its own. Was the Kennedy Center about to host a historic moment, or just the most bizarre awards show in history? No one knew for sure, but one thing was certain. The drama had already outgrown the award itself. What began as a simple announcement spiraled into a national spectacle. Trump positioned himself as the ringmaster, Stallone became the unlikely centerpiece, and Jimmy Kimmel's meltdown turned a late-night stage into ground zero for America's latest cultural clash. By the end of it all, the Kennedy Center honors no longer felt like a quiet celebration of art. They felt like the front lines of a political performance. Stallone's name will forever be tied to this moment, but it was Kimmel who made it unforgettable. His outburst crystallized what so many people were feeling, that this wasn't just about an award, but about what the award now represented. Was it a medal for art or a trophy for loyalty? And maybe that's the real legacy of this bizarre chapter, not who won, not who hosted, but the realization that even the institutions built to celebrate creativity can be reshaped into arenas for power and spectacle. The curtain may fall on the show, but the question it leaves behind will linger. In today's America, is there any stage left that politics hasn't claimed? Amid all the chaos surrounding Kimmel's meltdown, one question kept surfacing. Why Sylvester Stallone? On the surface, the answer seemed obvious. He's Rocky, he's Rambo, he's one of the most recognizable action heroes of all time. To Trump, that was the perfect recipe. Stallone wasn't just a Hollywood star, he was a larger-than-life figure who symbolized toughness, grit, and patriotism. In Trump's eyes, naming him a 2025 honoree was like stamping Made in America on the Kennedy Center itself. But Stallone's connection to Trump runs deeper than Hollywood nostalgia. Years ago, he praised Trump as a modern-day George Washington, and even dabbled in politics as one of Trump's so-called Hollywood ambassadors. That history made his selection feel less like a surprise and more like a carefully staged reunion between two men who both built their legacies on being seen as underdogs who fought their way to the top. Still, the choice raised eyebrows. For every fan who cheered the decision, there was a critic rolling their eyes. Some argued that Stallone's best work was decades behind him, while others claimed Trump was just picking allies instead of artists. Memes quickly popped up comparing Stallone's honor to giving an Olympic gold medal to someone who only runs when chased in an action scene. In the end, Stallone became more than just an honoree. He became the lightning rod at the center of a cultural storm. His name was the trigger that sent Jimmy Kimmel into meltdown mode and ignited a fiery debate about whether the Kennedy Center had turned into a political stage. And with Trump basking in the attention, it was clear this wasn't going to die down anytime soon. If you guys liked today's video, make sure you like and subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.